The DCF appears by and through Ms. Soretti. Mr. Wells appears in person and pro se. Ms. Hillis also appears in person and pro se. This matter was last before the court on February 16th of this year. Sorry, I might be getting, I believe it was February 16th of this year. The parties appearing as they do today. The matter was continued to today's date because Ms. Hillis had submitted or was poised to submit a new DRA, and Mr. Wells wanted to submit a more recent W-2. Ms. Soretti, are you in receipt of the documents you need to move forward at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. I received Ms. Hillis' DRA and Mr. Wells' W-2. I recalculated the child support worksheet that was filed on 3/5 of 2024 and mailed out to both parties. The child support only went down $1 based on the information provided. So today I would be requesting child support be established in the amount of $758 a month, effective 8/1 of 23. Mr. Wells would be allowed to claim the children on taxes, and Ms. Hillis was given an adjustment on the child support worksheet to that effect. The unpaid medical would be according to the line D2 split. Both parties to continue to carry health insurance on the children so long as reasonable and affordable. We are also requesting a 7/1B judgment in the amount of $788 for the time period 5 of 23 through 7 of 23.
All right, Mr. Wells, was there anything that you wanted to say with respect to those proposed orders?
Well, for one, the back pay, I know Mr. Soretti had already responded via email my questions to that, but I had some concerns with that because all of this was filed without any of my knowledge. And in fact, at the time that Mrs. Hillis went to file for support, she was still receiving financial support from me, and by means of using my accounts to pay off credit card debt, cell phone and home internet services, also fast food that she used my cards under, all before and that time that she filed from it for child services, all the way until I finally got informed that they even have been filed for. That is when I eventually had made the decision to stop helping, and until we come to an agreement here. So I felt like that was the same as me filing for a line of credit under somebody else's name and then making them informed of having to pay for it afterwards. And I did not think that that was fair. The total amount, yeah, I noticed that it only went down $1. And I see how they do their math, but in the real world, that is a very substantial amount and would create quite a bit of financial hardship. Yes, I know that would be allowing me to file for the kids and taxes, and that is helpful, but that is just a one time a year thing, not counting for the day-to-day expense, especially with the rise of everything that we pay for nowadays. Rent's going up, groceries are up, gas is up. If I was to have $1,000 almost, which was like $988 with the back pay included, $1,000 taken from my check, I would be working for a full time for about $250 a week. That is a great deal. What would I do? I have to go find another full-time job. I'm also a full-time student under the eyes of the state of Kansas as well. So finding another full-time employment would leave me no time have time with the kids, no time for any sort of life outside of that. I actually feel that DCF should not have needed to be involved in this whatsoever. And in fact, me and Mrs. Hillis should have came to an agreement that worked for us both. However, at that time, me and Mrs. Hillis were not in a very good way with each other. I propose, or what I would like to have proposed here, is that the child support amount be halved, and me and Mrs. Hillis both have one child that we each file for on taxes every year. That would be a way more doable amount there and fair to both me and Mrs. Hillis. And I'd also say that I would claim the older of the two children who would age out of being filed as a dependent as well. And she could file for the younger child, Freya. if that's fair, that's how I would feel a lot better about this, and it would cause less hardships between me and Mrs. Hillis as well.
Okay. Ms. Hillis, is there anything you'd like to say at this time, ma'am?
Excuse me. I do agree that we both should be able to claim one child each year. I do think it needs to be lowered a little bit, but I don't think by half, because I have them, Cody gets them every other weekend, and so that, you know, the gas, the food, the diapers, clothing, Alex getting ready to start school, so I know I'm going to be responsible for, you know, all of the school fees and stuff like that.
Okay. What do you think about the assertion that there were some monies that benefited you during the run-up to the actual hearing dates on this case?
He did help out with rent until May of last year. I did pay some of my credit card off of his, but it was the end of May that I did not receive anything from him. He didn't even buy our daughter diapers after May.
Your Honor, the money due between May and July is due to the state of Kansas for services provided to the children through the state. So that isn't really something the parties can agree to reduce on their own.
Yeah, and I was just wanting to know about the time frame. So yeah, I appreciate that. What Ms. Reddy, do you have anything to add based on the request of Mr. Wells and Ms. Hillis seeming acquiescence to being in at least some measure agreeable to some sort of reduction? And I guess the question I'm thinking of is both of them are talking about tax related issues and all of that. I'm supposing that you made the decision on the worksheet to give Mr. Wells the benefit of the taxes was just by virtue of the fact that it would potentially have greater impact with him given the differential in the earnings of the parties. Is that correct?
Your Honor, my predecessor made that determination based on the DRA that was previously submitted by Ms. Hillis, indicating that Mr. Wells in the past had historically claimed the children. And so we based that decision on what has been historically done each year. I understand that the parties would potentially like to alternate, but at this time, given that there is no court order for parenting time or, you know, taxes, we based it on the historical information. And if I were to make a change, we would have to continue this matter once again. This has been ongoing for a significant period of time, Your Honor. So I would certainly like to see a resolution today.
Okay, and I'm just kind of looking back at my own notes a little bit, and I do see that the first hearing on the case was back in October of last year. So it has indeed gone on for a little period of time. Well, I think in the circumstances, I certainly hear loudly and clearly what you, Mr. Wells, and you, Ms. Hillis, are saying about the history of the case. It seems like it's fair to say that there were some maybe times during which I think Mr. Wells described that the communication wasn't as good as it is now or as good as it had been previously. And I know that during times of miscommunication or a lack of communication, that can sometimes foment certain challenges or differences of opinion about what's happened or what's best going forward. But I do think that the DCF has sought, and Ms. Soretti and her predecessors in service to DCF have sought to consider all of the information that's been submitted, from DRAs to W-2 forms. And I think they've sought to also consider the bigger picture circumstances and the viability of different choices concerning the worksheet, where a choice was indeed something that was necessary to further computation. And I believe that in the end, they have arrived at what seems from this court's point of view to have been a appropriate child support proposed order, which is to say the $758 a month as they have prayed effective August 1 of 2023. That will be the order of the court. I am also going to order the requested judgment in the amount of $788 for the time period specified, May of 2023 through July of 2023. Certainly, this order is subject to change if there are circumstances that change. If there is, for example, some sort of prospective agreement regarding parenting time, if there's in that context some sort of a shared custody arrangement, obviously there's room for some change of these numbers. But at the same time, I think Ms. Reddy makes a good point that this matter has been pending and we need to make a decision at a snapshot in time. And as for purposes of today, I feel like I have heard and have sought to consider very carefully the opinions of everyone here. But I think those bottom line analysis come down to making the orders that I have made. And Ms. Soretti, if you could please prepare an order along those lines, I would much appreciate it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wells. Thank you, Ms. Hillis.
Your Honor,
Yes,
this
sir.
this order, I will have you know, and I'm sure Mr. Reddy and Mrs. Hillis are thrilled about this, will effectively have me out on the streets and steak on Mrs. Hillis's table. That is all. That is all this has done here today. And also, this is not helping our parenting, co-parenting between Mrs. Hillis. It's not in the best interest of the children. It's solely in the best interest of Mrs. Hillis. I have already gotten the kids in brand new clothes, bedding, toys. They have their own rooms. And yeah, at the moment, man, I only have them every other weekend, but I don't have any communication with Mrs. Hillis. She goes off with her new boyfriend to out of town, and she seems to like this arrangement where I'm only getting them at this time. She's never asked me for anything unless she wants me to take time off work because one of the kids are sick. But then that's also just caused me to be angry with her because she's effectively asking the state to steal money from me in essence and give to her, at the same time asking me to take time off work when I'm already going to have less money now, way less, so she can keep her job or keep from losing time. This is not going to better our relationship or our parenting whatsoever.
Well, you may indeed be right, and I don't suspect that I can say anything at this point that would prompt you to believe otherwise. But I think that I would ask you to at least consider that from a 20,000-foot view, it's been determined that a child support worksheet that takes various factors into account is a uniform methodology for courts in Kansas to try to ascertain appropriate levels of child support. And I have sought very carefully to do that. I've heard what you've said. We've delayed the hearing to allow you time to get additional information into Ms. Soretti and her predecessors. And at the end of the day, the formula has to be counting for something. And so we're here. The formula is giving a result that I have explained. And I hope that in the fullness of time, my prayer for you is that you'll finish your college, that you'll be in a position to potentially earn more money as a consequence. That's oftentimes the reason people seek a college degree, and that you'll be in a position to do better than you ever expected you might be able to do. And I don't know that anybody is necessarily celebrating the events of today. I know that there are stresses that you're speaking very eloquently to, and the impacts that this order will have on you, and that is not lost on me. I feel those things very palpably day over day, trying to do my best to make these decisions. But I also think, as you're talking about how costs have gone up and how challenging it is, how challenging might it be to try to raise a couple of kids on $758 a month? I mean, I have children of my own. I know a little bit about that, and it's no cakewalk. And so I've done my best to make the best order I know how to make. I don't expect you to celebrate that or even necessarily agree with it. But that's the order I'm making. And unless there's anything further, we can be in recess on this case. Thank you, Mr. Wells. Thank you, Ms. Hillis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.